Namaskar, Rakshak from the NFL Masala podcast here. This is a very special Eagles edition of the NFL Masala podcast where we talk about some of the Eagles' biggest needs in the 2026 NFL draft. Of course, with a little bit of spice. But before we do all of that, during the week, there was a trade. Between the Eagles and Mike Hosanan's Green Bay Packers, and it involved a wide receiver. So, according to Adam Schefter and other sources, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Eagles traded with the Green Bay Packers to acquire wide receiver Dontavian Wicks, and in exchange, the Packers received a 5th-round pick in this year's NFL draft and a 6th-rounder next year. And according to Dontavian Wicks' agent, David Mulugeta, who told Adam Schefter that the Eagles are also signing Wicks to a 1-year, $12.5 million extension. And they announced the trade and the agreement on the 1-year extension on Saturday without disclosing the value. And basically, what this is really special is that Dontavian Wicks is headed to his final year of his rookie contract, and now he's under contract till the 2027 season. 5th-round pick in 2023 for the Packers. He caught 30 passes for 332 yards, pair of touchdowns last season. Both of those were a 6-yard catch, 94-yard game against the Lions, his best of the game. And with this, and adding Dontavian Wicks to this Eagles roster, it kind of prepares the Eagles for a life with or without A.J. Brown. And, of course, the Diana Rossini and Mike Rabel reportings of all of this, that'll be on a very, very later episode. But what this means for the Eagles, trading for Dontavian Wicks, for the Eagles, it allows to build a big receiving room. Like, if they were to trade A.J. Brown, and me being the Eagles fan, the Eagles would have to trade A.J. Brown if they choose to move away from A.J. Brown, they have to trade him post June 1st because it would lower the cap hit. And it improves a little bit of the wide receiving room with Devontae Smith, Marquise Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore, and you have a deep one who can have a bit of a deep long ball threat like in Dontavian Wicks. And not only that, you're returning back maybe Johnny Wilson or Darius Cooper. And that could and another move that the Eagles could do, like if they move away from AJ Brown, like they still, and if they trade him this year or post to June 1st, they could take that pick and probably get a better wide receiver like this year or next year. Maybe you look at Jeremiah Smith if they decide to move up. It all depends what Howie Roseman wants to do. But the Packers, they still have significant depth at wide receiver while adding a lot more draft picks when they don't have first rounds for the next 2 years. When they don't have the first round selections because of last year's Micah Parsons trade. Even though they lost Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks, the Packers still have a good depth. They have Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Matthew Golden. Those are going to be your three wide receivers for the Packers. And they will try and get Golden a lot more involved. And remember, they also signed Sky Moore, and they've expected Tucker Kraft to return back from last year's injury. So I think with those retaining receivers, the Packers did not need to do that, and they would have not been able to sign Wicks to a contract and would lose him to free agency. But I think it was a big move for the Packers, like to trade away, and because they still have a good amount of depth, and also Dontavian Wicks and also with the Eagles getting Dontavian Wicks, he can also be that messenger, act as like that messenger or that translator role, because the Eagles' new offensive coordinator Sean Mannion technically coached, who was in a way like the Packers' QB coach last year before he's now the Eagles offensive coordinator. Dontavian Wicks kind of knows the system So you're expecting him to say like be that translation. This is how we could do it. If the Eagles keep AJ Brown, you have a ton of depth to work with, and maybe you see Hurts distribute the ball a little bit more, and to not only Wicks but to Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, and maybe a little bit of Elijah Moore or Marquise Hollywood Brown. But then again, Brown and Hollywood Brown and Elijah Moore could be camp bodies because you don't know if they're going to last in this roster. I would not be surprised if the Eagles take a wide receiver like late round 3, but if they take one in round 2, I would not be surprised, but I'd still be shocked by the move for that. I've also heard like rumors like yeah, maybe Omar Cooper Jr. and Jordan Tyson could come in because of those draft visits. Then again, you do not know what the hell Howie's doing. So, but then again, the Dontavian Wicks signing, it's very interesting. And it's a very interesting move that the Eagles are doing because they are preparing a possible year without AJ Brown. Me as an Eagles fan, I would love to keep AJ Brown for one more year and see what kind of value we can get after next year. And Vicks becomes that number 2, and then Devontae Smith the number 1, and then you have another good receiver after that. But let's see what happens because anything is possible when it comes to the NFL draft and when it comes to Howie Roseman. And with that being said, let's move on to our next section, to the most important section for us Eagles fans. So, in our last episode, or season 5, episode 1, I referred that the Eagles needed help on 4 main positions: defensive line, offensive line, tight end, and the defensive backs, more likely the safety position. So, with that being said, let's take a look at first our tight ends, because here's what the Eagles currently have. They have Dallas Goedert under contract for 1 more year, and then they signed Johnny Mundt, Grant Calcaterra, and Stone Smart to like 1-year deals. But there's a possibility that Johnny Mundt and Stone Smart don't even make it to the roster or to the 53-man roster, like past like with OTAs and training camp. If they don't make the cuts, who do you look for? And with that, there are a couple of draft picks that the Eagles could look at. For example, if you look at number 23, if that is possible, they could try, and if that person's still there, I'm talking about Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. I would say he is the best tight end overall measurables, being 5'3", 6'3", 241 pounds. Elite athletic traits and versatility. He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash. Verbally great at seam routes, and he could also be that dynamic running back after the catch. So he is a great yak recipient. If you saw what his tape in Oregon, he was like one of their best targets. Weakness, he doesn't like 6'3" is like okay, but it doesn't have the height advantage, and he still struggles with that concentration drop. So there is that if factor. But if he lands at number 23 for the 23 for the Eagles, maybe you still maybe you still stick with that route, with that position. And I think like what it'll really help out is you said like if Kenyon Sadiq is still there, you still keep it for like 1 year. Whoops. So my screen's still there. Okay. Didn't know what happened, but I think it's with that. But I think Sadiq is definitely a good pickup. However, there are possibilities that the Eagles could move away from that. So like if they pick someone, if not, 2 other options I have. And these can be on day 2, rounds 2 or rounds 3. You can go Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt, former quarterback. He had a 45.5-inch vertical jump during the pre-draft process. He's an elite route runner. He's more like a pass catcher. Like if you want your best bet, think of Zach Ertz, I would say. But hold on from there. Do not jump the gun on me at this one. I still think that he's not a traditional inline blocker, and he's limited in the trenches. So he's more like you detach him like from like inside tight end, like you can't put him in like play action. or unless he like steps like as an X or a Y. And then your second one would be, your third one, a third option would be Max Clear from Ohio State, savvy receiver, great hand, reliable hands and smooth hips, draws comparisons. If you want to have a good idea, think Brock Bowers. That would make a lot of sense. I mean, lighter frame, not a good blocker. And if you're looking for a tight end that wants to emphasize more the passing game, a la Zach Ertz, Max Clear would be your guy. And another sneaky, like, also you could look at Sam Roosh from Stanford. He has the size 6'6", 267. More likely limited as a pass catcher, so you're looking at as a blocking tight end, unless the Eagles decide to go like, oh, if you want to draft two tight ends, go two tight ends set, one who can pass, one who can catch, one who can block, but you're looking for someone who could do both. So maybe not, but also if you're still looking at day 3, I would say look at Michael Trigg. Good, massive catch radius, 99 percentile wingspan, nearly 85 inches, high-end vertical athleticism. He's from Baylor. Inconsistencies in techniques, focus on chopping. So basically, it's like your best guess. So you can either go, if Kenyon Sadiq is not available, no fears. Look for either Max Clare, Sam Root, I would say, or the Eli Stowers, Max Clare, Sam Roach, or Michael Trigg. Those would be like your next 4 best ones. So other than that, moving on to our next position, I would say the defensive line, because defense but for both defenses offense, you build through the trenches. Defensive line, you need a ton of depth. Like, yes, you have like some decent 1-year deals that you signed. Arnold Ebiketie, and you're still keeping with Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith. You also brought in, one second. And you're also thinking like there could be cases in which so Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, you don't know about Brandon Graham if he's going to come back or not. Then Arnold Ebiketie, Taquan Graham, depth options. And then, I forgot, Jahad Campbell. In some cases, if he plays outside linebacker, you could shift him to the edge and put Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in there. So I would say if you're looking at the draft, especially fully on defensive edge, you would need to look at some of the following. One second. I'm still trying to pull up I'm trying to pull up the edges like that I wrote down. So bear with me for 1 minute. And here it is. So on the edges, I mean, obviously people will say like David Bailey from Texas Tech, one of the best edge rusher, like he's looking at a top 10. Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, and then if you're looking one, but then for the Eagles, if you're looking for like good edges, like now with Jalen Phillips being gone, if you look at number 23 for edges, I would say you look at someone like Keldrick Falk from Auburn, 6'6", 276, heavy edge. He would be favored to fit in his Fangio scheme. Inside out versatility and run stopping. Still needs a little bit help on the pass rush. And then, or I've heard a lot from Primo, Akeem Mesidor. I mean, of course, shout out to Primo for 4th of John. Akeem Mesidor, he's very, very popular. Yes, he's turning 25. He's already like 25, turning 26, but he is pro ready with a sophisticated hand technique. Basically, he's like an ideal replacement for like Jalen Phillips because he has the ability to control the ground game. Or you look at TJ Parker from Clemson, 5.5 sacks, dipped from 2025 from the 2024 season, good contributor and a rotational. Or you look at Cassius Howell, who has that has like a ghost rusher move comparable to Harold Landry, but he does have a small arm inch. And if you're looking for more high upside rounds 2 and 3, you could look at Dennis Sutton from Penn State, who has like that relative athletic score of 9.96. Strong candidate in the second round, from what I've heard. Zion Young from Mizzou, 6'6" power rusher, and he had a very impressive Senior Bowl. Or you could look at Romello Heights from my school, Texas Tech University, who was part of that defensive line, like David Bailey, Romello Height, Lee Hunter. Hell, my man from linebacker Jacob Mother effing Rodriguez and Blake Hunter. Romello Heights, I would look at a versatile rusher, diverse toolbox. He could spin, goes inside. He could be available in the third round. So there are a ton of options with that. And I think that would be your best bet. On the defensive side, like still sticking on defensive side, looking at defensive tackle. So with that, the Eagles defensive line, you only have your two main stars. Like you already extended Jordan Davis to a 3-year deal. Jalen Carter still available. You're kind of thinking, do you sign him to an extension, or do you? Oh, and also Mara Ojomo, he's entering his final year. So what do you do? Maybe you look at someone like a Christian Miller, most ideal to be that Georgia to Philly pipeline. He's an explosive interior athlete. If the team cannot retrain both Jalen Carter and Mara Ojomo, a little bit about Christian Miller. He had played in 12 games, starting in 10 spot. 6'4", 305 pounds. Ideal. He could be. And then you could also look at Dominic Orange, powerful 322 pounder, elite rotational depth piece. He has a connection to Nick Sirianni, who has ties to the Iowa State. Round 2 or 3, Peter Woods from Clemson, who is like apparently a lot violent, like almost like a clone of Jalen Carter, projected first rounder. And I mean, you're hoping to have a rotation, a good, decent rotation for Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Mara Ojomo, and Ty Robinson. I think you could also look at Zane Durant from Penn State and Damon Capehart from Clemson. Durant, undersized, twitchy. You could compare him to Milton Williams, high day 3, disruptive pass rusher. Draymond Carpet, 6'5", 313 run stuffer. Basically what Jordan Davis did. He'd be like a good nose tackle looking at a day 3 pick at best. So some options at the edge and that one. Now, for the offensive line, this is very big because couple of things. The Eagles have a big issue to fix with have another big issue to fix with for the O-line. If you think about it, Lane Johnson is still undecided whether he's going to play for another year. Oh, I mean, he is, but like in the future, I don't know. You need to find a long-term successor. And plus Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens, they were both banged up last year, which is why one of the many reasons why the run game was bad, and you had to rely a lot on Tyler Steen and Jordan Mailata. Jordan Mailata didn't have a good season as well. But a couple of things that you need to do. And also, Jeff Stoutland being out, you cannot stick with the fact like, oh, we need to stay and develop. You have to look for immediately parts in the future. So a couple of options for the offensive line. If you're going to look for right tackle, you could look at either 3 or 4 options. Caden Proctor from Alabama at 23. If those prospects are there at 23, I still keep him. Caden Proctor from Alabama, 6'7", 352 pounds. He's the ideal candidate to sit behind with Lane Johnson. He can also slide inside to guard if needed. And I believe the best safest interior prospect would be like Olaiva Vega Ione. Olaiva Vega, Oane. He's like the best interior prospect from Penn State. Pre-draft 30 visit with the team, 6'4", 320 pounds. He could be a replacement for like Elena Dickerson and Tyler Steen. And if Tyler Steen is not playing, you could put Ioane over there, like either on the right side, and if Dickerson gets hurt, move him on the left. That would be my best guess, because you're looking for someone who can immediately start and make a good impact. Monroe feeding, Freeling from Georgia, and he's more like a project. He's like, apparently his ceiling is considered like the highest in like the tackle class. Of course, for Georgia to Philly sickos, this is what you want. And of course, Spencer Fano, the top overall tackle. That's what they've been told. 4-spot versatility. He could play left guard, right tackle, left tackle. He cannot play center, apparently. And he's a good zone run agility, makes him a perfect scheme for Philly. I would look at Spencer Fano or Ioane. If not, look at day 2, day 3, like Caleb Lomu from Utah as well. He participated in pre-draft visits, smooth, athletic for zone blocking, underrated. Also, if you want like identicals, like you could look at like Max Ianacor from Arizona State. He had a great Senior Bowl, met with the Eagles on a top 30 visit, and of course Logan Jones, number 7 on Bruce Feldman's list and freaks list. Like he has like who fits the mold of an athletic interior guard. Maybe you look at those options at both offensive tackle and guard. If you want a starter and you're staying at the 23, say Kenyon Sadiq is gone, I look at Kenyon Proctor, Ioane, or Spencer Fano if they're still available. If not, second round, go Caleb Lomu. I think this is where the Eagles have to capitalize. They have to nail the first round pick on this one, because you're looking for someone who can replace Lane Johnson for the long term, because Lane Johnson ain't getting younger. He's 36 years old. So, and he's facing mounting injuries. So you don't know what to do. So they need to be very judicious and smart about this pick. Now, last but not least, the safety position for the Eagles. Yes, Andrew Makuba might come back, but we do not know. We do not know if he'll be at 100%. Layoffs, you got Marcus Epps. Yes, there's a possibility that Michael Carter II could be translated at that role. And you also can look at JT Gray and Jonathan Jones. Both will most likely be like, Jonathan Jones would be experienced, but more like a backup nickel. And then JT Gray would be special teams. You're looking for, and remember, the Eagles had lost Reed Blankenship. So, and they traded away Sidney Brown. So you need to try and grab safety at that spot. And which is why I would not be surprised if they pick safety at number 23. And here are some options. If he's still there, I will look at Emmanuel McNeil Warren, pick from Toledo. Why I think that could make a lot of sense. Number one, he is a certain Mr. Quinyon Mitchell's teammate from Toledo. Good box safety, 6'3", 5" reach, and he has the reach, a good reach, more like a physical enforcer. You could see him moving towards that box safety role. And he can also play at the line of scrimmage with a turnover rate. He has a peanut punch. He doesn't have the speed. Ran a 4.52 in the 40. Can be exposed to deep center field. So athletic testing and vertical broad jump was like meh. But after all, he knows. I think with Quinyon Mitchell, he's good for his coverage and he's a down force, and he has like natural down disruption skills, so that could work out. And now the next couple of picks, like you look at Dylan Thieneman, he's a first rounder for sure. But if he falls and Emmanuel McNeil Warren, Dylan Dianaman could be number one. He is the slam dunk pick for that spot. Extension would he is considered an extension of that defensive coordinator on the field. He can adjust to pre-snap motions, 4.35 speed. Could technically fill in that exciting white spot with Cooper DeJean. And I think he's a very productive playmaker, 8 career INTs and over 300 tackles. His weakness would be like a change of direction skills, minor breaks in man coverage. He can miss tackles due to high pursuit speed. And I mean, he would be a good fit. He'd be a great fit. Slam dunk. If he falls to 23, I highly doubt it. He's either going top to 15. And last but not least, I could take a look at another one, and I would say another good option would be Jalen Kilgore. If you you have to consider this. If the Eagles are going to be focusing more on offensive line, mainly in that tackle position, first round, and then the second round you go tight end. Kilgore's the top day 2 option if he's still there, and 210 pounds, 33 inch arms. He fits the physical role that Howie Roseman will look for. And I think with Kilgore, he is more of the hybrid box nickel safety. He is good. He's versatile. He's played a lot more in the line of scrimmage, making that extra linebacker. And he can also help with run support while maintaining the speed to cover tight ends. Elite tackler. He rarely misses open fields, plays with a high motor, nose for the ball. He has a high tackle volume, over 180 career tackles, and his ability to punch the ball loose, peanut punch. His weakness is the deep field range. He's excellent in short to intermediate, the extended vertical threats, especially in single high. Not the best bet. His transitions can officially look stiff. Your best example would be like Kyle Duggar or like from the Pats. He can stop, and if you put him against tight ends, he'd be your best bet. I've heard guys like AJ Hall, you could be the traditional deep safety, but he could take blocks. Zach Wheatley from Penn State, he was a ball hawk, but he would focus more. He focuses a lot more instincts and ball hawking traits rather than like the raw thumping power. So his play strength, he's 6'2", frame, overpowered by like a good NFL power back and a tight end, blocking tight end. He needs to be focused on the run game. So yeah, and with that being said, these are some of the Eagles picks. Eagles ideal candidates on who they should target in those areas of weakness. I mentioned for like offensive tackle and or guard, one of the safest picks you can definitely go with is, and I quote, look at Caden Proctor as a tackle, Olaivalvega Ioane, who can also play who's great at interior, Monroe Free, Spencer Fano, who could play like on all 4 positions except center, and Caleb Lomu. On the defensive side, especially defensive tackle, Christian Miller, Dominique Orange, Peter Woods, Zane Durant. Or on edge, you could look at Kedrick Folk, Akeem Messidor, Cassius Sauer, or even TJ Parker. Safeties, most likely Dylan Dianaman. If he falls, I'd be very shocked. But Emmanuel McNeil-Warren and Jalen Kilgore, those are my 2 best ones. And if you want to, since we're talking about it, let's talk about wide receiver. It is going to be a very, very tough thing. But since you already have like a ton of since the Eagles already have like the wide receiving room, I would be not surprised if Howie takes a stab at it. Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, and Jordan Tyson are probably going to go first round. I have seen mocks that the Eagles have asked like for Omar Cooper, and they've entertained Jordan Tyson as well. So it all depends upon what they do with AJ Brown. I would say Omar Cooper Jr., 7.3 yards after catch. He was part of the of that Indiana University Hoosiers championship team. Jordan Tyson had a top 15 threat, boomer bust, deep threat, great catch. Also, I would say maybe you look at someone like a Denzel Boston or Chris Bell. Chris Bell would be in the second or third round pick. Built like a linebacker. He's like the more high upside AJ Brown prototype. But then again, he had a late season ACL tear, 6'2", 227. So maybe you keep him at round 3. Maybe you get him at a day 3 or round 2. And what you do from there is you redshirt him, have him develop, get trained up, and then you bring him on in once you move away from AJ Brown. Or you go Denzel Boston, second round pick, 6'4" target, jump balls and contested catch picks. From UW. So maybe you could also look at Skylar Bell and Bryce Lance. There are so many different options, or like the Elijah Surratt, but I think those would be some of your best options. With that being said, thank you very much for tuning into this very special Eagles Draft Needs episode of the NFL Masala podcast. If you like this episode, make sure you follow us on follow the NFL Masala podcast on our following platforms: Google, Spotify, Apple, Pocket Cast, and yes, on YouTube. So make sure you like, share, subscribe. We are also on social media, our following platforms: Google, oh my goodness, I can't say anything right. We are also on the following social media platforms: Twitter/X, Instagram, and Threads at NFL Masala 2022. That is at NFL Masala 2022. Thank you for tuning in to this very special Eagles draft prospect episode. We'll catch y'all soon. Fly, Eagles, fly.